Hi, a classic film that I finally got round to seeing is The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Sergio Leone's 1966 Western, an epic set at the time of the American Civil War, and the final part in his Dollars trilogy, or the Man with No Name trilogy, following on from Fistful of Dollars and For a Few Dollars More. It again stars Clint Eastwood as the man with no name. In this film, he's nicknamed Blondie, who has taken up with a Mexican outlaw named Tuco, and together they run a scam where Blondie hands him in to the authorities. They get ready to hang him, having picked up the reward, and Blondie rescues him at the last minute. They split the money and then they head on to the next town where the reward is a little bit higher. However, they get to hear of a Confederate treasure that awaits those who can find it, whilst a competing bounty hunter nicknamed Angel Eyes, played by Lee Van Cleef, is also after it. So the three men with shifting alliances travel across the battlefields of the Civil War in the southwestern United States in search of an extraordinary hoard of gold. It's an epic film. It's almost 3 hours long, and the version that I watched was the 2003 restored version, which has several scenes that were omitted from previous English language versions. It was an Italian production, and as is standard with Italian pictures, they generally shoot without sound at all, and all dialogue and all sound effects are added in post production. The result being that Eastwood and Eli Wallach, who played Tuco, never dubbed these particular scenes when the film was first released. So years later, they had to go back and add in new recordings. This was also sometime after Leone had died. Um, I don't think it's quite as good as people say. But having said that, I did enjoy it a great deal. The problem with it, I think, is that simply because I was watching the extended version, it's a bit too long. The first half of the film is very slow, really taking its time to introduce the three main characters and follow them quite exhaustively over the story of how they come to discover the secret of the gold hoard. And there are sequences there that could be removed, trimmed down, that add color to the story, but just slow everything down. When first released in the UK, it ran to about 2.5 hours. I can imagine that would have been a solid length for this type of story. As it is, I think 3 hours is a bit too long. However, in the second half, as the the, the hunt for the gold really kicks into gear, the story really gets going, and there is much more meat to the story, much more in the way of scenery and color, and more characters come in. Blondie and Tuco get involved with a battle between the two sides of the war on a bridge, and wind up doing their bit for peace by destroying the bridge. And then there's the famous climactic sequence at the graveyard where the gold is hidden, with a three-way shootout between the three men and the reveal of where the gold is hidden and who's going to end up with it. It has very fine performances, beautiful photography, an iconic score by Ennio Morricone. You know how this music goes, um, and really, it's just the fact that it's a bit too long. It's a little bit too self indulgent. The restored version is interesting to have the full length version of the picture as viewable for an English speaking audience, but I feel that any kind of default version should have maybe been the 2.5 hour, just to keep it tight, just to keep the pace and the energy going all the way through. So I liked it quite a lot, and I would recommend it. But compared to two other Leone films that I saw recently, For a Few Dollars More and Duck You Sucker, aka Fistful of Dynamite, I didn't enjoy it quite as much, but it is pretty good.